Today we're going to learn how to kick the F out of fear so we can overcome fear and anxiety. But if we do that, if we kick the F out of fear, that means we're left with ear. What the heck does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you how to quickly transmute and transform and overcome fear so you can get on with your life, for heaven's sake. So let's get right into it. I'd never really thought about it before, but the opposite of fear and anxiety is not love. Hate is actually the opposite of love. And the opposite of fear and anxiety is knowledge. And that begins with curiosity. So I want to read to you the definition of curiosity. It is a strong desire to know or learn something. It's an inquisitive interest and an interest leading to inquiry. And so what they found is that when a person is in curiosity, it really gives the physiology and the psychology a dopamine hit, which is, dopamine is the thing that increases our mood and our pleasure, and we make better decisions when we have dopamine, when we get a dopamine hit. And so fear, to contrast, let me read you the definition. It is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, that it's going to cause pain, that there is a threat. It gives us a feeling of dread. There is an anticipation or an awareness or a belief that causes an expectancy with alarm. And so we all know that when we're in fear and dread and loathing, that we have the cortisol and the adrenaline flowing through the system, which is very caustic to the body and to the mind. And then it also sets us on that path of the fight, flight, or freeze mode, where we end up shutting down our frontal lobe, where our good decision making is, where we're more calm and in the present moment, and we go back into the limbic brain and it narrows our focus. And that's when we get in all these kinds of problems. So what they found also about curiosity, which is really interesting, is they did studies on people who they would get them in a curiosity state or, to be inquisitive, and they actually were more attractive to people that were observing them because you're more warm and open. And then in contrast to that, people who are in fear, we all know that it causes us to turn inward and it causes us to contract and to be less attractive. As we're looking at the difference between fear and understanding or being inquisitive or curious, I think the quote from Seneca, who was a Greek philosopher, is so appropriate. And he stated that we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. And I don't know if you've noticed or been aware of this ongoing dialogue that we can have in our imagination, in our mind. And it might go something like this, like, let's say you have an interaction with someone and you don't feel that great about it. And there'll be part of you that says, well, you shouldn't have been so mean. And then the other part of you says, well, I didn't really mean to. I was trying to be funny. And then the other one will, well, you sounded really mean. And then you're like, oh, I hate when I do that. Or if you're going to try something new, let's say you want to take singing lessons. Like, I think I'm going to take singing lessons. Something inside you will say, well, you're too old. That's so stupid. And then the other part will be like, well, God, do you really think it's stupid? I don't want to seem stupid. Yeah, your friends will make fun of you if you tell them that you're taking singing lessons. Yeah, you're probably right. I never finish what I start anyway. So we have these conversations and there are these two different voices. Well, who are those two people? And who is the person in the middle that is aware of this ongoing swirling conversation that we're having? Well, in reality, the person in the middle who is listening to both sides of the conversation is the real you. It's the awareness. It's the higher consciousness. It is the divinity. It's the spark. It's the essence of who you really are. And the rest of it is just that wild imagination that causes us suffering. And that's why I also like that saying that says, don't believe every thought that you think. And I think more than anyone, Eckhart Tolle has set me free with a teaching that he has. And maybe it's just because it hit me at the right time, but it really resonated and clicked in for me when he says that thoughts are not generated from you, but they're happening to you. And so, for me, I was like, whoa, like that is unbelievable, because I have always taken such ownership of my self-limiting beliefs. And, I would have these arguments in my mind when I wanted to have, or create different things in my life. I would just beat myself bloody. And so as I began to really meditate and listen to things and do my own deep diving, I really have come to believe that thoughts are happening to us. We're not thinking those thoughts. The thoughts are thinking us. And that is so freeing. It relieves a lot of the burden and the pressure about overcoming self-limiting beliefs. Because when we realize that thoughts are happening to us, then we realize that our continual worrying and thinking that we have to obsess and work out every detail and worry about everything to stay in control of our life, that not suddenly, takes a little bit of work, but in a manner of speaking, it just kind of lifts the ceiling off all of this pressure that we put on ourselves when we think it's our limiting belief. And, when we're functioning over trying to control everything by worrying about every minute detail and bracing ourselves and, trying to plan for all of the what ifs, that really tanks our biology, and it tanks our psychology, and it gets us, down in our spirit. The big rub with the thoughts happening to us is the amount of momentum that it ends up building in our physiology and our mind and all around us. And we end up becoming like that fainting goat. Like, that is so me. I would have all of these arguments why I shouldn't do something, and I would try to obsess and worry about everything, and then I would just be like that fainting goat and never make any movement forward in my life. And we cannot solve a problem that doesn't exist. If it only exists in our imagination, then it's just these conversations, and it becomes amplified, and it becomes bigger than it really is. And then we don't end up doing anything, or we don't follow through on the things that we really desire in our life. Because when we do have a true event, which we all have had events, we all have things we have to overcome, whether it be a physical ailment, a sickness, a divorce, a loss of a loved one, no matter what it is, when we are truly faced with an event, we always find a way to deal with that event. It may not be easy, but it's much easier than the suffering that we go through with our imagination, because we cannot think our way out of a problem, especially if we are feeling fear and then we repress it and we try to willpower our way through. It just ends up getting bigger. And so how we kick the F out of fear is we first have to tune an ear to our inner awareness and those conversations that we have. Like those two people, it's like one person on one shoulder and another person on another shoulder, and they're just beating the essence of who we are, that person in the middle. It's just beating that real you to death. And the thing is everything is as a seed, and it doesn't matter what your belief system is. If you plant corn in the ground, you're going to get corn. If you plant peas in the ground, you're going to get peas. If you're friendly to people, you're going to get friendliness back. If you are thinking fearful thoughts, and if you are in anxiety, it is going to perpetuate itself, and we're going to stay in that loopy thinking, because fear is really a reaction. And we have a choice how we want to respond to that reaction, because fear really pushes us, and curiosity and knowledge and intrigue is something that beckons to us or calls to us or gently pulls us towards us instead of pushing us and making us feel pressure and, feeling the pressure that we have to control everything. There is a huge difference, but the main thing is if you're going to kick the F out of fear, you have to turn an ear to your inner awareness as the beginning point. I so want to do this justice, because if you can get it to click in like I have, it doesn't mean you're not going to have fear anymore, but it really is a game changer, because if you can get it on like a true heart level that these thoughts are happening to us and this continuous stream of commentary that we have, it is just, like something may have happened to us and we're like, I don't ever want that to happen again. And so we have a commentary to protect us from that. Or it could even be, well, your mom worried about something, so you end up worrying about something. Or it could even be, we have a lot of fear in our culture right now. It's really easy, even if you're trying to not listen, to pick up on that and to let that stream through you. And, we've also talked about how the brain is lazy and it wants to find the lazy way out because it's trying to conserve energy in case something really does happen that's bad. And so it's about severing the link between when the thought streams hit our physiology and before it gets to the brain, and then it takes over and we end up having this dialogue where we're just beating ourselves to death. And so it is tuning in to the internal dialogue and having an awareness that there is this conversation going on, but stop it before it gets to our brain, which takes a little bit of practice. And so how we do that is when that fear arises, we want to sit with it for a minute. Because, we have spent so much time avoiding it, repressing it, trying to power our way through, pretending it's not there, that, we haven't really taken the time to sit with it. We want to escape at all costs. But I think the doorway to transform it is to begin to be acquainted with it and to realize that it is not going to kill you. You are much stronger than you are giving yourself credit for. And anytime you've had a big thing in your life, you've been able to face it and you've been given guidance to get through it. And so I think, if we can sit with it, if we can become aware of it and we can bring it out of the shadows where it's been lurking, then we can, the light of our consciousness, the light of our awareness, the light of the divinity, the light of the divine can begin to burn it out of our physiology. I think that's why it says, when I am weak, then I am strong. And I think also, that's why we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We're wrestling against these thoughts that happen to us. And I want to read to you what psychology and science has to say about this very thing, because I really believe when ancient teachings, when scripture, when science, when all of these things line up, then there has to be a pretty significant element of truth in it. So science says that if we have a fear and we want to face it, we need to lay out in detail what we are afraid of. And then we put that into small hypothetical problems or manageable problems. And then we expose ourselves to those smaller problems. And they found that people don't get less afraid, they get braver, which is really amazing if you think about it. So it's not that they're saying, okay, the world's not dangerous anymore. If anything, they end up saying the world is dangerous and maybe even more so. But there's something in me that responds in an empowering way when I take on a challenge voluntarily. That is the mindset that causes growth and thriving as a consequence. So what happens, instead of us, like when we're repressing, when we're trying to willpower through, when we think it's our self-limiting beliefs, when we think it's internal, we end up having the stress hormones. But when we realize that these thoughts are happening to us, and if we break them down to small bite-sized pieces and we expose ourselves to things that we are afraid of, we actually become brave. And that's when we get the empowerment feeling, the dopamine. That's when it goes into the reward system. And so we have to, first and foremost, kick the F out of fear, turn an inner ear to this inner dialogue that's going on. And then we need to sit with it and become acquainted with it and realize that it's not going to kill us. And then the kicker is we need to make a conscious choice to direct our attention somewhere else, because it's not you, it's happening to you. And so we need to consciously focus our attention or direct our mind, distract our mind from thinking those same old thoughts that would try to take over our physiology and talk in each ear. So we need to sever that link. And I think that's why it says in Psalms, David said, "Why are you so downcast, O my soul?" And so one of the things that I do, and I pretty much try to do it every morning, is I go out and I take a walk, because there's something about when you're walking and the way your eyes move, it makes you feel like you're making progress. But also I talk to my soul. I just, I give myself a stern talking to, and I talk about things that I am hopeful for and things that I believe about myself and things that I want to accomplish. But also doing things like just observing the sunrise and the sunset, and just realizing that the true essence of who you are is divinity. That, greater is he who is in you, or that which is in you, or, the divine that is in you, than those things, those thoughts that are happening to you. Or get on your yoga wheel and do the yoga wheel and talk to yourself about the Spirit of God swims in the cerebral spinal fluid, and it starts from the mouth of God and it goes down to the sacrum, and you are greater than any imagination or any thought form that would try to overcome you. So those are just a few of the tools that we can employ. There is much to discuss about how to kick the F out of fear and how to overcome and transform and transmute it. And as I was writing the script, I had an occasion to have a text conversation with someone over this same subject. And then a few days later, I had a phone conversation with a friend of mine, because I really feel like it's so easy to get swept away by these thought forms. And it's just so helpful to realize that we don't have to internalize it. These thoughts are happening to us, and we are free. And we have the free will to choose whether we want to be pushed and driven into the dirt by fear, or we want to direct our consciousness, our thoughts, to something else. Because these energy streams of emotion that we have allowed to have their way with us, we can choose a better way. It is within our rights as sovereign children of the soil, who are created in the image of the Creator, to create something else in our life. And I just, I really have felt just like so touched in my soul that it's not my limiting beliefs, but it's thought streams that I pick up on. And the essence of who I am is that I am created in the image and the likeness of the divine. And that which is in me is greater than any imagination that would try to shipwreck me. And so I hope you'll spend some time really contemplating on this, and I'm sure I'll have more to say, but until next time, I'm really hoping that you will kick the F out of fear and turn an inner ear on the awareness and begin to sit with these things so you too can have freedom, because it's not that we're not going to have fear, but we do have the sovereign choice to choose a better way. And so until next time, be blessed and be free of fear.